He called down fire from heaven in front of a crowd of thousands. He ended a 3-year drought with a single prayer. He outran a king's chariot on foot. And then, days later, he crawled under a tree in the wilderness, alone, and asked God to kill him. Same man, same faith, days apart. This is the story of Elijah, and it's far more honest about what it actually costs to carry something this large than most retellings will tell you. Elijah appears in the Bible with almost no introduction, which is itself unusual. Most major biblical figures get a genealogy, a backstory, some framing for where they came from. Elijah gets one line in 1 Kings 17. He was a Tishbite from Gilead. That's it. No family mentioned, no birth narrative, no years of preparation described. He simply appears, already fully himself, already speaking with the direct authority of someone who has been standing in God's presence long enough to say what he says to King Ahab in his very first recorded words. Those first words are a declaration. There will be no rain in Israel, not dew, not rain, except at Elijah's word. Just like that. No preamble, no diplomatic framing. He walks in, says it, and disappears. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what was happening in Israel at this moment. Ahab, the current king, is described in 1 Kings as having done more to provoke God than every king before him combined. A striking claim in a line of kings that already had a fairly dismal track record. His wife, Jezebel, was a Phoenician princess who came from a culture built around the worship of Baal, and she hadn't merely brought her own religion with her, she had actively imported it, installing Baal worship as the dominant religious system in Israel, killing the prophets of the God of Israel, and replacing them with 450 prophets of Baal and 400 prophets of Asherah, eating at her own table. Elijah enters this world as, effectively, the last standing prophet of God in public life. One man against the entire institutional, religious, and political apparatus of the most powerful royal couple Israel had seen in a generation. That context matters enormously for everything that comes after, because it means every single thing Elijah does, he does without institutional support, without a network behind him, without anyone visibly standing with him. He is, by all appearances, alone from the very first moment he appears. After the drought declaration, God tells Elijah to hide, first by a stream called the Cherith Ravine, where ravens bring him bread and meat twice a day, morning and evening, until the stream dries up because of the very drought he announced. Then God sends him to a widow in Zarephath, a town outside Israel entirely, in Sidon of all places, which is Jezebel's home territory. It's a strange place to send someone hiding from Jezebel's reach, and the text doesn't fully explain the choice. What it does give us is the scene that follows. The widow Elijah finds there is herself down to her last meal, a handful of flour and a little oil, enough for one final loaf for herself and her son before they starve. Elijah asks her to make it for him first, and then promises her the flour and oil won't run out until the drought ends. She does it, and it doesn't. The jar of flour and the jug of oil are still there each morning, replenished by something the text doesn't explain, only records. But then her son dies, and Elijah, who has just witnessed something miraculous in this household's daily provisions, takes the dead child, carries him upstairs, stretches himself over the boy's body 3 times, and prays. The child breathes again. What the text gives us in these years before the drama of Mount Carmel is a picture of what Elijah's regular life actually looked like. Sustained by ravens in a ravine, dependent on a widow's generosity in a foreign city, calling a dead child back to life in an upstairs room with no audience. The miracles of Elijah's ministry didn't start at Carmel. They started quietly, in private, for an audience of one grieving mother. 3 years into the drought, God tells Elijah to present himself to Ahab. On the way, he meets Obadiah, a God-fearing official in Ahab's own household, who has been secretly hiding 100 of God's prophets in caves to keep Jezebel from killing them. The detail matters. Even in the heart of Ahab's court, there was someone quietly holding on. Elijah, who will later be convinced he is the only one left, is already walking past evidence that he isn't. When Elijah finally faces Ahab, the king calls him the troubler of Israel. Elijah's response is immediate. You and your family are the troublers because you abandoned God and chased Baal. Then he proposes the contest that would become one of the most dramatic scenes in the entire Old Testament. All Israel assembled on Mount Carmel, 450 prophets of Baal on one side, Elijah on the other, alone. The prophets of Baal go first, and they go hard. They call on Baal from morning until noon. They dance around the altar. Nothing happens. By noon, Elijah starts mocking them openly. Call louder, he says. Perhaps your God is deep in thought, or busy, or traveling, or asleep. So they shout louder, cutting themselves with swords and spears, blood running, working themselves into a frenzy from noon until the time of the evening sacrifice. Still nothing. Not a sound. No response. Then Elijah steps forward. He rebuilds the torn-down altar of God using 12 stones, one for each tribe of Israel. He digs a trench around it. He drenches the sacrifice with water. 4 large jars poured over the offering, then 4 more, then 4 more again, until water is running down and filling the trench around the altar. And then he prays. One prayer, calm, direct. Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I've done all of this at your word. Answer me, so these people will know you are God, and so their hearts may turn back again. Fire falls from heaven. It burns the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, the soil, and licks up every drop of water in the trench. The people fall on their faces. The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God. The prophets of Baal are seized. Then Elijah climbs back to the top of the mountain, bows down with his face between his knees, and prays again, this time for rain. 7 times his servant checks the horizon. On the 7th, a cloud the size of a man's hand appears over the sea. By the time Ahab is heading home, the sky is black with clouds, and the rain is already falling on Israel for the first time in 3 years. Elijah outruns Ahab's chariot to Jezreel. The text states this matter-of-factly, as though a man running faster than horses is simply a normal thing that happened. And then Ahab tells Jezebel what Elijah did on Mount Carmel. Jezebel sends Elijah a message, not an army, not an arrest warrant, a message. She is going to kill him by this time tomorrow, the same way he killed her prophets. And Elijah, the man who just called fire down from heaven in front of thousands and ran ahead of a chariot, is afraid. He gets up and runs for his life. He runs south to Beersheba, roughly 100 miles. He leaves his servant there, and then he walks a full day more into the wilderness, alone, and sits under a broom tree. And there he asks God to let him die. I have had enough, Lord. Take my life, I am no better than my ancestors. Sit with that sentence for a moment. This is not a performance of despair, not someone being dramatic for an audience. There's no one watching. He's alone in a desert, a day's walk from the nearest town, having just told his only companion to stay behind. He lies down under the tree and falls asleep. What God does next says more about who God is than almost any other single scene in the Old Testament. No rebuke comes, no correction, no lecture about the miracle he just witnessed or the drought he just ended, or how ungrateful it seems to ask to die right now. What comes instead is an angel who touches Elijah gently and says, "Get up and eat." There's bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. Elijah eats, drinks, and goes back to sleep. The angel comes again. "Get up and eat, because the journey is too great for you." That's it. No theology, no sermon, just food, water, and a quiet acknowledgement that what lies ahead is hard, and Elijah needs strength for it. Strengthened by those 2 meals, Elijah travels 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Horeb, the same mountain where Moses received the law, the mountain of God. The parallel is deliberate and significant. Moses too spent 40 days on that mountain. Moses too had moments of profound exhaustion and despair in his prophetic calling. The text is quietly placing Elijah in a long, costly line of people who carried enormous weight for God and felt every pound of it. Elijah finds a cave and spends the night, and God speaks to him there. The same question, asked twice before and after everything that follows. "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Elijah's answer is exactly the same both times. "I have been very zealous for you, Lord, but the Israelites have rejected your covenant, torn down your altars, and killed your prophets. I am the only one left, and now they're trying to kill me too." It reads like a man who has been rehearsing this speech for 40 days of walking. "I gave everything. It wasn't enough. Everyone else is gone. I'm the only one left. And they want me dead too." God tells him to go stand on the mountain because he is about to pass by. What follows is one of the most theologically significant sequences in the entire Old Testament. A wind so powerful it tears mountains apart and shatters rocks. But God is not in the wind. Then an earthquake. But God is not in the earthquake. Then fire. But God is not in the fire. And after the fire, a still small voice. In Hebrew, the phrase is kol demama dakar, the sound of thin silence, a soft murmuring sound. Some translations say a gentle whisper. Whatever the exact rendering, it is the precise opposite of every dramatic thing Elijah has been associated with his entire ministry. Fire from heaven, drought-breaking rain, a chariot outrun on foot, and God shows up in none of that here, but in something so quiet it could almost be missed. Elijah hears it, wraps his face in his cloak, and goes to stand at the entrance of the cave. The voice asks again, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" He gives the same answer as before, word for word, and God responds, not by answering the despair, not by arguing with his feelings, but by giving him something to do. Go back. Anoint 2 kings. Anoint Elisha as your successor. And by the way, there are 7,000 people in Israel who have not bowed to Baal. You are not the only one left. You never were. Elijah goes back. He finds Elisha plowing a field with 12 yoke of oxen and throws his cloak over him. A simple physical gesture that signals succession, one prophet passing the mantle to another. Elisha leaves the oxen, runs after Elijah, and becomes his companion and successor. The story continues. Elijah confronts Ahab again over the murder of a man named Naboth, whose vineyard the king coveted. He encounters more of Ahab's successors. He calls down fire twice more when soldiers come to arrest him. He never quite loses the directness, the edge, the willingness to stand alone that characterized him from his very first appearance. And then, in one of the most remarkable endings any biblical figure receives, Elijah doesn't die. He and Elisha are walking together when a chariot of fire and horses of fire appear between them, and Elijah is swept up into heaven in a whirlwind. The man who asked God to take his life under a broom tree in the wilderness, taken by God directly without dying into whatever comes next. It would be simple to take Elijah's story and turn it into a lesson about not giving up, or a reminder that your worst moment doesn't define you. Those things are true here. but sitting with the whole story asks something more specific of us. What hits hardest about Elijah is not the fire from heaven, it's the broom tree. It's the fact that his lowest point came immediately after his highest. Not before it, not instead of it, but in direct succession, within days of the most dramatic display of God's power his entire ministry produced. The fire fell, the rain came, the nation cried out that the Lord is God, and then a single threatening message from one woman sent him running 100 miles into a desert to lie down and ask to die. If that sequence feels familiar in any way, the crash that comes after the victory, the exhaustion that arrives precisely when you feel like you should feel best, Elijah's story names it with unusual directness. It doesn't explain it away. It doesn't rebuke it. It feeds it bread, gives it water, asks what it's doing here, and then gives it something to do. And somewhere in a 40-day walk, and a cave, and a whisper so quiet it could almost be missed, the prophet who called fire down from heaven found out that the loudest moments of his ministry were never where God was most present. The whisper was,